I never thought a piece of folded paper could destroy someone's world in under 5 minutes, but on Christmas Eve 2 years ago, I watched it happen to my sister in real time. I'm Emma, 31 years old now, and what I'm about to tell you is the story of how one family dinner turned into a reckoning that had been building for over a decade. My older sister Sophia was always the golden child. Everything she touched turned to gold while I struggled just to keep my head above water. She got into Yale on a full ride while I worked night shifts at a diner to afford community college. She landed a six-figure job at a tech startup right out of school, while I spent years climbing the ladder in retail management. She married Derek, a surgeon from a wealthy family, while I was still figuring out how to pay rent on time. But here's the thing nobody tells you about being the underdog in your family. You develop a thick skin. You learn to celebrate your own victories quietly. You stop expecting your parents to show up for your moments because they're always too busy attending Sophia's latest achievement ceremony. The real problem started about 5 years before this particular Christmas Eve. Sophia and Derek had been trying to have a baby for 3 years with no success. They went through round after round of fertility treatments, saw the best specialists money could buy, and still nothing worked. It was heartbreaking to watch, and I felt terrible for them. But Sophia couldn't just process her grief privately. She had to make it everyone else's responsibility to manage her pain. Every family gathering became a minefield where we all had to carefully avoid any mention of children or pregnancy. My cousin announced her pregnancy at Thanksgiving, and Sophia locked herself in the bathroom crying for 45 minutes while everyone sat in uncomfortable silence. What made it worse was that I wasn't even in a position to have kids yet. I was dating my boyfriend Ryan seriously, but we weren't trying for a baby. We weren't even engaged. But somehow, the mere possibility that I could get pregnant easily while Sophia couldn't became this unspoken tension that poisoned every interaction. Then came the engagement announcement that started everything spiraling. Ryan proposed to me on a beach vacation, nothing fancy, just the two of us and a sunset. When we told my family at Sunday dinner, I expected congratulations. Instead, Sophia burst into tears and ran from the room, and my parents followed her, leaving Ryan and me sitting there feeling like we'd just announced a death instead of a celebration. When they came back, my mother very gently suggested that maybe Ryan and I could keep the wedding planning low-key for a while. She said Sophia was having a really hard time, and seeing other people get their happy endings was triggering for her. My father nodded along, adding that it would be helpful if we could be sensitive to Sophia's situation. I remember looking at Ryan and seeing the confusion and hurt in his eyes. We'd just gotten engaged, one of the happiest moments of our lives, and my family was asking us to hide our joy to protect Sophia's feelings. Planning my wedding became this weird, shameful secret. I couldn't post about it on social media because Sophia might see it. I couldn't talk about it at family dinners because someone might mention flowers or venues and trigger Sophia. My mother kept suggesting we do something small and intimate, maybe a courthouse wedding, so Sophia wouldn't have to endure watching me have the big celebration she'd had when she married Derek. But here's what really gets me. Sophia had a massive extravagant wedding when she married Derek. 300 guests, a country club venue, a designer dress that cost more than my first car. My parents paid for the whole thing and talked about it for months. Nobody worried about whether it might make me feel bad that I couldn't afford anything like that. We ended up having a small wedding with about 50 people. Sophia was my maid of honor because that's what you do, right? She showed up late to my bachelorette party, stayed for exactly an hour, then left. On my wedding day, she spent most of the reception sitting at a corner table looking miserable. Her maid of honor speech was less about Ryan and me and more about how hard life is and how important it is to appreciate what you have. Things got exponentially worse after Ryan and I got married. Sophia started making these comments about how easy my life was, how I didn't understand real problems, how some people just get everything handed to them. Never mind that I'd worked 3 jobs to pay for college while she went to Yale for free. But what you're about to hear next will absolutely shock you, because what happened 6 months after my wedding changed everything. Ryan and I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but we were thrilled. We were married, stable, ready to start our family. But telling my family filled me with dread. I knew how Sophia would react. We waited until I was 14 weeks along to share the news. We invited everyone to Sunday dinner and made the announcement over dessert. I watched Sophia's face go from confused to comprehending to absolutely enraged in about 5 seconds. Then she started screaming. She accused me of getting pregnant on purpose to hurt her. She said I was rubbing my fertility in her face. She called me selfish and cruel. My parents just sat there, not saying a word, while my sister berated me for having the audacity to get pregnant. Ryan finally stood up and told Sophia her reaction was completely inappropriate. She turned on him, yelling that he didn't understand what it was like to want something desperately and watch other people get it without even trying. Sophia threw her napkin on the table and stormed out. My parents looked at me like I'd just ruined Christmas. My mother sighed and said maybe I should have told Sophia privately first. My father suggested that in the future, I should be more considerate of my sister's feelings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just shared that I was going to have a baby, their first grandchild, and instead of congratulating me, they were critiquing my delivery and suggesting I should have managed Sophia's emotions better. But what happened next would break your heart because exactly 1 week later, I had a miscarriage. It was devastating. Ryan and I were destroyed. We'd already started planning the nursery, picking out names, imagining our future. I took 2 weeks off work to recover physically and emotionally. I cried more in those 2 weeks than I had in my entire adult life. Did Sophia call to check on me? Did she apologize? Did she offer any support? No. According to my mother, when she called to tell Sophia about my miscarriage, my sister's response was that maybe this was the universe's way of teaching me not to take things for granted. When my mother told me what Sophia had said, something inside me broke. How could my sister be so cruel? How could my parents hear her say something like that and not immediately shut it down? I told my mother that I needed space from Sophia. My mother sighed and said I was being too sensitive, that Sophia was hurting, and sometimes people say things they don't mean when they're in pain. But Sophia was always in pain. There was always some reason why she couldn't be happy for other people, always some excuse for why everyone else had to tiptoe around her feelings. And my parents had spent so many years enabling it that they couldn't even see how toxic it had become. Ryan and I pulled back from family events after that. We started declining invitations, making excuses about work. When we did show up, we'd arrive late and leave early. My parents weren't happy. My mother started calling, saying I was being unfair to Sophia, that I was holding grudges. But moving on would have required Sophia to acknowledge she'd done anything wrong, and that never happened. Instead, she started a social media campaign that was clearly directed at me. She'd post things like, "When people show you who they really are, believe them," and "Some people will never understand what real struggle looks like." What made it unbearable was that our extended family and mutual friends could see these posts. My college roommate called asking if everything was okay because the posts were getting concerning. I had to explain the whole situation, and even then people didn't always get it. The social media thing reached a breaking point about 8 months after my miscarriage. Ryan and I attended a friend's baby shower, and I posted one innocent photo from the event. Within an hour, Sophia had posted a long rant about people who flaunt their ability to be around babies. She didn't name me directly, but everyone who knew our family situation knew exactly who she meant. I was so humiliated that I deleted my own post. That night I called my parents, furious. My mother's response made me want to scream. She said, "Well, honey, maybe you could be more sensitive about what you post online. You know Sophia's struggling." That was the moment I realized my parents weren't just enabling Sophia's behavior. They were actively making me responsible for managing her emotions. It wasn't enough that I had to walk on eggshells around her in person. Now I was supposed to curate my entire online presence around her feelings too. What I'm about to tell you next will make your jaw drop because things got even more complicated when Sophia started involving Derek's family in her campaign against me. Derek's parents had always been kind to me, but Sophia started calling them regularly, telling them her version of events. In her telling, I was the cruel sister who'd deliberately gotten pregnant to hurt her, who'd then played the victim when I lost the baby. I only found out when Derek's mother Susan called me. She said she felt she needed to reach out. "Emma, I hope you know that Michael and I don't believe what Sophia's been saying about you. We've known you for years, and you're not the kind of person who would deliberately hurt someone you love. Susan told me that Sophia had been calling them multiple times a week, crying about how I'd turned the whole family against her, how I was manipulating our parents. It had gotten so bad that Derek finally had to ask Sophia to stop involving his parents in our drama. Now Derek's family knew all the ugly details of our dysfunction, and I had to live with the knowledge that Sophia had been bad-mouthing me to them for months. She wasn't just venting to friends or posting vague things online. She was actively telling people I was a villain who'd gotten pregnant to spite her and used my miscarriage for sympathy. Family gatherings became unbearable. Everyone walked on eggshells around Sophia, monitoring their words, avoiding any topic that might upset her. My father started looking genuinely stressed whenever her name came up. My mother developed this nervous habit of immediately changing the subject if anyone mentioned babies or children. But what happened at Easter dinner 8 months before the Christmas I'm telling you about was the final straw. We were having a nice meal when my aunt casually mentioned that her daughter had just gotten engaged. It was innocent family news. But I saw Sophia's expression change instantly. She got very quiet, excused herself from the table, and disappeared into the bathroom for 15 minutes. When she came back, her eyes were red and swollen. The entire mood shifted immediately. Everyone started fussing over Sophia, trying to cheer her up. Meanwhile, my cousin's engagement got completely buried. My aunt looked embarrassed for even bringing it up. Ryan was silent on the drive home. When I asked what was wrong, he finally said what he'd been holding back. "This is insane, Emma. One person's emotions are controlling your entire family. Everyone is so busy managing Sophia's feelings that they can't even celebrate normal life events anymore." He was absolutely right. We made a decision that night to significantly reduce our involvement in family events. We started declining about half the invitations. When we did attend, we'd show up late and leave early. My parents noticed, and they were not happy. My mother started making comments about how we were abandoning the family. They couldn't see that their own enabling behavior was driving us away. By the time Christmas Eve rolled around 2 years after my miscarriage, I was emotionally done with my entire family. Ryan and I had started trying to conceive again, but we decided not to share any news with my family until absolutely necessary. We planned to spend Christmas morning together and then make a brief appearance at my parents' house. But then my mother called 3 days before Christmas Eve, practically begging us to come for their gift exchange instead. She said Sophia had been having a really hard time lately. Against my better judgment and Ryan's protests, I agreed. Christmas Eve arrived and we showed up around 7. The place was decorated like something out of a magazine. Sophia and Derek were already there, and surprisingly, Sophia seemed to be in a decent mood. She actually hugged me when we arrived, something that hadn't happened in over a year. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Conversation flowed relatively normally. Sophia asked about my work. I asked about her latest project. My parents seemed relieved. For the first time in years, I started to think maybe this Christmas wouldn't be a disaster. After dinner, we moved to the living room for presents. There were mountains of wrapped packages under the tree, way more than usual. My dad stood up, rubbing his hands together. "Okay, everyone," he said. "Susan and I have some very special gifts this year, so we're going to do things a little differently. We'll save the biggest surprises for last." We started with the usual stuff. Sweaters, books, gift cards. Sophia gave Ryan an expensive bottle of scotch, and I actually felt hopeful that maybe she was making an effort. Then my parents exchanged a significant look, and my mother got up to retrieve something from the kitchen. She came back carrying a large manila envelope and handed it to Sophia. "This is from both of us," my dad said, his voice thick with emotion. "We wanted to do something really special for you and Derek this year. What I'm about to tell you will absolutely blow your mind, because what was in that envelope was beyond anything I could have imagined." Sophia opened it slowly and pulled out what looked like legal documents. Derek leaned over to read with her, and I watched their expressions change from curiosity to complete shock. "Oh my God," Sophia whispered, and then she started crying happy tears. "Derek, they bought us the lake house. They bought us the cabin at Crystal Lake." For context, this lake house was a place we'd vacationed at as kids. Sophia had always loved it, talked about how amazing it would be to own something like it. I'd looked it up once and found similar properties listed for around $400,000. Sophia jumped up and hugged both my parents, still crying. Derek was shaking my dad's hand, thanking them over and over. It was clearly a massive, life-changing gift. I sat there trying to process what was happening. $400,000 for a vacation home. Ryan and I had been saving for 3 years to buy our first house, and we were still about $35,000 short of having enough for a decent down payment. We'd been living in our small apartment, budgeting carefully, sacrificing vacations and dinners out. But I pushed down the jealousy and tried to be happy for Sophia. For a moment, it felt like old times. For a moment, I could almost forget the years of cruelty. My dad cleared his throat after the excitement died down. All right, Emma and Ryan, we have something for you as well. My mother reached under the tree and pulled out a small envelope, much smaller than Sophia's. She handed it to me with a smile that seemed a little forced. Go ahead, honey, she said. Open it. I opened the envelope expecting maybe a gift card. Instead, I found a single piece of paper folded in half. It looked like it had been torn from a legal pad, covered in my mother's handwriting. Read it out loud, my dad said. We want everyone to hear this. I unfolded the paper and my heart started racing. Are you sure you want me to read this out loud? Of course, sweetie, my mother said firmly. It's something we've been thinking about for a long time, and we want the whole family to hear it. I looked at Ryan, who nodded. Then I looked back at the letter, my hands trembling as I began to read. Dear Emma and Ryan, I read. We have watched you both work incredibly hard to build your life together, and we are so proud of the people you've become. Emma, your dedication to your career and your strength through difficult times has shown us what real character looks like. I glanced up and saw Sophia's smile falter slightly. Confusion was creeping into her expression. Marcus, you have been the perfect partner for our daughter, supporting her dreams and standing by her when others in this family failed to do so. Sophia's smile was definitely wavering now. Derek looked uncomfortable. We know you've been saving to buy your first home, I read on, and we know it's been a struggle. We've watched you make sacrifices and never once ask us for help, even when times were tight. My voice was getting stronger because I was starting to understand what this letter was. We also know that you've had to deal with unfair treatment from certain family members and that you've handled that situation with more grace and maturity than anyone should have to. You've been excluded, minimized, and had your personal tragedy used against you. Sophia's face had gone completely white. She was staring at me like I was exposing her secrets. So, I read, we have decided to give you the wedding gift we never properly gave you, plus a little extra for everything you've endured. I paused because the next line took my breath away. We are giving you $50,000 toward the purchase of your first home, and we are also paying off all of your remaining student loan debt, which we calculate to be approximately $42,000. Ryan gasped. I could barely process it, but I forced myself to continue. This is not a loan. This is not something you need to pay back or feel guilty about. This is what we should have done when you got married, instead of asking you to hide your happiness to protect someone else's feelings. Sophia made a choking sound. Derek reached over to touch her arm, but she jerked away. We hope this helps you start your family in your own home, surrounded by people who truly support and love you. We also hope this makes up in some small way for the times we failed to defend you when you needed us most. Sophia was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. We love both our daughters, I continued. But we have realized that we have enabled behavior that has hurt our family and hurt Emma specifically. We hope that going forward, all relationships can be based on mutual respect and genuine kindness, rather than walking on eggshells around one person's emotions. The room was completely silent. We know this letter might cause some upset, but we're tired of pretending that the way things have been is okay. It's not okay. Emma deserves better from all of us. I read the final lines. Use this money to build the life you want with people who celebrate your happiness instead of resenting it. We love you both, and we're proud to call you our daughter and son. Love, Mom and Dad. I folded the letter and looked around. Ryan had tears in his eyes. My parents were watching Sophia, who looked like her entire world had just shattered. What happened next would change our family forever. What the hell is this? Sophia's voice was low and dangerous. You just humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look like a monster. The letter didn't make you look like anything, my father said calmly. It stated facts. Facts about how you've treated your sister and facts about how we've enabled that treatment. Sophia stood up, her voice rising. This isn't the same thing at all. You give us a house, but then you ruin it by making everything about Emma and her victim complex. Difficult situation? Sophia's voice went up. What difficult situation? You got everything you wanted. You got married, you got your degree, you have a husband who worships you. What exactly has been so difficult? The room went quiet. This was it. The moment where I either backed down or stood up for myself once and for all. You want to know what's been difficult? I asked. Watching my sister turn into someone I don't recognize. Having to tiptoe around my own accomplishments. Planning my wedding around your emotional state. Being screamed at for getting pregnant. Being told my miscarriage was cosmic justice. Sophia opened her mouth, but I kept going. Having my parents suggest I postpone my engagement announcement. Being asked to keep my wedding low-key. Watching you give a speech that was entirely about your problems. Having you skip my bachelorette party. Being asked to curate my entire social media presence around your feelings. But you know what the hardest part has been? Realizing that my big sister had turned into someone who could only be happy if everyone around her was miserable. Someone who sees other people's joy as a personal attack. Sophia was crying now, but I wasn't finished. I have been nothing but supportive. When you struggled with fertility, I was there. When you decided to take a break from trying, I supported that. But none of that mattered because you'd already decided I was your enemy. That's not true, Sophia whispered. Yes, it is, Derek said quietly, and everyone turned to look at him. Madison, it is true. You know it's true. Jake, Sophia's voice broke. No, Sophia, Derek said gently but firmly. I love you, but I'm not going to sit here and watch you do this anymore. Your sister lost a baby, and you told her mother it was the universe teaching her a lesson. Do you understand how cruel that is? I was hurting, Sophia said, covering her face. I was in so much pain. You're always in pain, Derek said, and I could tell this was a conversation they'd had before. There's always some reason why you can't be happy for other people. This doesn't just affect your relationship with Emma. It affects our marriage too. You can't be genuinely happy about anything because you're too busy keeping score. Sophia dropped her hands. Now my own husband is turning on me. I'm not turning on you. I'm telling you the truth. When's the last time you celebrated something good happening to someone else without finding a way to make it about what's wrong with our life? Sophia stared at him, trying to come up with an answer. The fact that she couldn't find one told us everything. Maybe we should take a break, my father said. No, Sophia said, exhausted. Don't stop on my account. Clearly this is some kind of intervention. We just decided we were tired of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't, my mother said. Sophia looked around the room, and for the first time in years, I saw something other than anger or self-pity. I think it might be shame. So what now? She asked. You've all told me what a terrible person I am. What do you want from me? We want you to get help, my mother said simply. We want you to talk to someone about why other people's happiness feels like a threat. We want you to figure out how to be happy for your sister. And we want you to apologize, my father added. Not a fake apology. A real one where you acknowledge the hurt you've caused. Sophia looked at me, and for a moment I saw the sister I used to know. I'm sorry, she said so quietly I almost didn't hear her. I'm sorry too, I said, because despite everything, I was. I'm sorry it came to this. No, Sophia said, shaking her head. Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I did. I know I did. I just don't know how to stop. You stop by getting help, Derek said, taking her hand. You stop by doing the work to figure out why you think love is a limited resource. I don't know if I can, Sophia admitted. I don't know if I know how to be any other way anymore. Then learn, my mother said firmly. Because this version of you isn't sustainable. Sophia nodded, tears streaming. The lake house. You should give it to Emma. She deserves it more. Sophia, no, I said immediately. That's not what this is about. This is about treating each other with kindness and respect. But I don't know how to do that anymore, she said. I don't remember how to be happy for other people. Then we'll help you remember, I said, and I realized I meant it. But you have to want to change. Sophia looked around the room, taking inventory of all the relationships she'd damaged. I want to do better, she said finally. I want to be the kind of person who can be genuinely happy when my sister gets good news. I want to be the kind of wife who doesn't make everything about what's wrong. I want to be the kind of daughter who doesn't make family gatherings a minefield. Then that's where we start, Derek said. The room fell quiet, and this Christmas Eve had been more honest and raw than any family gathering in years. Sophia and Derek left shortly after, with Sophia promising to start looking for a therapist. My parents and Ryan and I stayed up talking until past midnight. That letter changed everything. Not just because of the money, although being debt-free and having a down payment was life-changing. It changed everything because it was the first time my parents had acknowledged that the family dynamic wasn't working. The first time someone had called Sophia's behavior what it was. Most importantly, it was the first time I felt like my parents saw me clearly. Sophia did start therapy, and it's been a slow process, but she's been working on herself. She and Derek are doing better. She's been making genuine efforts to repair our relationship. She still has bad days, but she's trying. She apologized properly a few months later, acknowledging specifically what she'd done wrong. We're not back to where we were as kids, and we may never be, but we're building something new. Something more honest and adult. Marcus and I bought our house 6 months later, and Sophia was genuinely happy for us. She even helped us move. It was a small thing, but it meant the world. Sometimes the best gift isn't what's wrapped under the tree. Sometimes it's the truth delivered with love and the hope that things can get better.